Ilara lived in a small cottage at the edge of town. Sunlight streamed through her windows, warming the freshly baked bread cooling on the sill. She wasn't always alone. Her husband, Thomas, had been a kind man, a woodworker, who filled their home with laughter and the scent of sawdust. But he was gone now, leaving Ilara with only memories and the quiet hum of her days. The townsfolk knew Ilara for her gentle heart. If someone needed help, Ilara was always there, offering a kind word or a helping hand. She tended her garden with care, and her flowers were the brightest in the village. But even surrounded by beauty and friendship, Ilara felt a little lonely sometimes. Then there was Gareth, the blacksmith. His strong arms and calloused hands could shape iron into anything he desired. But his heart was heavy. A past love had left him broken, and he built walls around himself, keeping everyone at arm's length. He lived in a small, dark house near the forge, the clang of his hammer the only sound breaking the silence. He was known for his skill, but also for his gruffness. Children would peek into his forge, fascinated by the sparks, but quickly ran away if he noticed them. Gareth seemed content in his solitude, but Ilara saw something else in his eyes, a deep sadness that mirrored her own. Ilara often wondered about Gareth. She saw him in the market, his shoulders slumped, buying only the necessities. He never smiled, never lingered to chat like the other townsfolk. She knew his reputation, the grumpy blacksmith who preferred the company of his forge to people. But Ilara believed everyone deserved a little kindness, a little sunshine in their lives. She remembered when Thomas had first come to town, a shy young man with a talent for carving wood. The townsfolk had been wary of him at first, but Ilara's mother had taken him under her wing, offering him meals and friendship. Thomas had blossomed under her care, becoming a beloved member of the community. Ilara felt a similar pull towards Gareth. She knew what it was like to feel lonely, to carry a heavy heart. Gareth's blacksmith shop was a world of fire and metal. Sparks flew as he hammered glowing iron, shaping it into tools, horseshoes, and gates. He was a master of his craft, his creation strong and beautiful. But the beauty seemed confined to the objects he made, never reaching his own face. Ilara thought, perhaps, a little kindness could melt the ice around his heart, just as the fire melted the iron in his forge. She decided to do something, a small gesture, to let him know he wasn't alone. The next morning, Ilara baked a loaf of her best bread, a sweet honey oat, its aroma filling her small cottage. She wrapped it in a clean cloth, the warmth radiating through the fabric. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards the blacksmith shop, her heart beating a little faster than usual. The clang of Gareth's hammer echoed through the air as she approached. Smoke billowed from the chimney, and the air smelled of coal and hot metal. Ilara hesitated for a moment, wondering if she was making a mistake. What if Gareth was truly as grumpy as everyone said? What if he rejected her kindness? But then she remembered the sadness in his eyes, and her resolve returned. She walked to the open doorway of the forge and cleared her throat. Gareth didn't seem to notice. He was focused on shaping a piece of red-hot iron, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Mr. Gareth?" Ilara said, her voice a little louder this time. Gareth stopped hammering and turned towards her, his eyes narrowed. He was even bigger and more intimidating up close. Ilara held out the loaf of bread, offering a small smile. "I baked some bread this morning," she said, "and I thought you might like some." Gareth stared at the bread, then at Ilara, his expression unreadable. Ilara braced herself for rejection. Gareth's silence stretched on, making Ilara's palms sweat. She almost turned to leave, convinced she'd misjudged him. But then, he slowly reached out a large, calloused hand and took the bread. "Thank you," he mumbled, his voice rough as stone. He didn't meet her eyes. Ilara's heart lifted. "You're welcome, Mr. Gareth," she said, her smile widening. "I hope you enjoy it." She turned to leave, not wanting to intrude any further. "Wait," Gareth said, stopping her. He looked down at the bread in his hands, turning it over as if examining a strange object. Why? Elara paused, considering her answer. Because, she said softly, everyone deserves a little kindness. And I thought you might be a little lonely. Gareth's gaze finally met hers. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or even a hint of gratitude. He looked away quickly. I'm not lonely, he mumbled, but Elara wasn't convinced. Well, she said, lonely or not, I hope you enjoy the bread. She gave him another small smile and then left the forge, the clang of his hammer resuming as she walked away. She felt a warmth spread through her, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, she had made a small difference in Gareth's day. Back in his forge, Gareth stared at the loaf of bread, its warm scent filling the air. He hadn't expected such a kindness, especially not from Elara. He cautiously tore off a piece and tasted it. The sweetness of the honey and the nutty flavor of the oats filled his mouth. It was the best bread he had ever tasted. The next day, Elara noticed Gareth was still eating the bread. He sat on a crate outside his forge during his lunch break, carefully tearing off pieces and savoring each bite. He even seemed to be smiling, a tiny, almost invisible smile, but a smile nonetheless. Elara's heart warmed at the sight. A few days later, Elara saw Gareth struggling to mend a tear in his leather apron. His large hands fumbled with the needle and thread. Remembering her own skill with sewing, Elara decided to offer her help. She gathered her sewing kit and walked towards the forge. The familiar clang of the hammer filled the air. Gareth was shaping a horseshoe, his muscles straining with each blow. She waited patiently until he finished. "Mr. Gareth," she said, "I couldn't help but notice you were having trouble with your apron. I'm quite good at sewing, and I'd be happy to mend it for you." Gareth looked surprised again. He hesitated, then shrugged. "It's just an old apron," he said gruffly. "But it's still useful, isn't it?" Elara replied with a smile. "Besides, I enjoy sewing. It would be my pleasure." Gareth studied her for a moment, his expression softening slightly. "All right," he said finally, taking off the apron. "Thank you." Elara took the apron and her sewing kit back to her cottage. As she carefully mended the tear, she wondered if Gareth would ever truly let down his guard. But she was determined to keep trying. Even small acts of kindness, she believed, could make a big difference. Elara returned the mended apron to Gareth a few days later. He accepted it with a nod, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. The apron, neatly patched, looked almost new. Elara continued her small acts of kindness. She noticed he often skipped meals, so she started bringing him a small bowl of soup or stew when she made it for herself. Sometimes, she'd just stop by to chat for a few minutes, asking about his work or the weather. One particularly cold week, Gareth didn't come to the market. Elara, concerned, went to check on him. She found him in bed, shivering and feverish. He'd caught a nasty cold. "You should be resting," Elara scolded gently, feeling his forehead. It was burning hot. Gareth just groaned and turned away. Elara immediately took charge. She fetched water and a cool cloth, tending to him like she would have tended to Thomas. She made him a pot of her special lemon and honey tea, known throughout the village for its healing properties. She stayed with him throughout the day, making sure he drank enough fluids and keeping his fever down. Gareth, weak and delirious, didn't protest. He seemed to accept her care, almost grateful for her presence. As his fever broke, he finally drifted into a peaceful sleep, Elara watching over him, a silent guardian. The experience brought them closer, a quiet understanding blossoming between them. As Gareth recovered, he started talking more. He told Elara about his childhood, growing up in a small village far away. He spoke of his father, a blacksmith himself, who had taught him the trade. He described the joy of shaping metal, the satisfaction of creating something beautiful and useful from raw materials. He even told her about his heartbreak. Her name was Annalise, and she had loved the flowers more than the forge. She had left him for a gardener in a neighboring town, leaving Gareth feeling worthless and unlovable. Elara listened patiently, offering words of comfort and understanding. She didn't judge him for his past or his pain. She simply listened, letting him unburden himself. One evening, as they sat by the fire in his forge, Gareth showed Elara some of his more intricate work. He pointed out the delicate details of a wrought iron gate he was crafting for a wealthy merchant. His eyes sparkled with passion as he described the process, the way the metal responded to his touch. "It's more than just a job," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "It's a part of me. It's how I express myself." Elara smiled. "I can see that," she said. "You put your heart and soul into your work." For the first time, Gareth felt truly seen, truly understood. He realized that Elara wasn't just being kind, she genuinely cared about him and his craft. And slowly, the walls around his heart began to crumble. Elara's encouragement was like sunshine after a long winter. She helped Gareth see that Annalise's leaving wasn't a reflection of his worth. She reminded him of his talent, his strength, and the beauty he created with his hands. She pointed out how much the town relied on him, how his tools helped them farm and build, how his horseshoes kept their animals healthy. "You are valuable, Gareth," she said one day, her eyes shining with sincerity. "You have so much to offer." Gareth had never heard those words before, not truly. Annalise had always been critical of his work, calling it dirty and unrefined. But Elara saw the artistry in it, the dedication, the love. Elara also shared her own stories of loss and grief. She told him about Thomas, the happy years they had spent together, and the pain of losing him. She explained how she had learned to cope with her grief, finding solace in her garden and in helping others. "It's okay to be sad," she said. "But you can't let sadness define you. You have to find joy in the little things, in the beauty that still surrounds you." Gareth listened intently, realizing that Elara understood his pain in a way that no one else ever had. He began to see that healing was possible, that he could move on from his past and find happiness again. Elara's gentle spirit was slowly mending his broken heart. He found himself looking forward to her visits, to her kind words and her warm smile. He was starting to feel again, to hope again. Gareth wanted to show Elara how much her kindness meant to him. He wasn't good with words, but he knew how to work with metal. He decided to create something special, something that would capture the beauty and strength he saw in her. He spent days in his forge, carefully shaping and hammering a piece of iron. He wanted to make a rose, a symbol of love and admiration. It was the most challenging piece he had ever attempted. Each petal had to be perfect, delicate and strong at the same time. He wanted it to last forever, just like his gratitude for Elara. He heated the iron until it glowed red-hot, then carefully hammered it into shape, using all his skill and precision. He added intricate details, tiny veins on the petals, and small thorns on the stem. He wanted it to be as beautiful as any real rose, but even more enduring. Finally, after days of hard work, the iron rose was complete. It was a masterpiece, a testament to Gareth's skill and his growing feelings for Elara. He polished it until it gleamed, then carefully placed it in a small vase he had crafted from wood. He waited for Elara to visit, his heart pounding with anticipation. He wanted her to know how much she had changed his life, how much he appreciated her kindness. He hoped that the iron rose would convey what he couldn't express in words. He knew it wasn't just a gift, it was a piece of his heart. When Elara arrived at the forge, Gareth was unusually quiet. He fidgeted with his hands, avoiding her gaze. Finally, he cleared his throat and presented her with the iron rose. Elara gasped. She had never seen anything so beautiful. The rose was exquisitely crafted, each petal perfectly formed, the stem adorned with tiny thorns. It gleamed in the sunlight, a testament to Gareth's skill and artistry. She reached out and gently touched one of the petals, her fingers tracing the delicate veins. She could feel the heat that had been used to shape it, the strength that had gone into its creation. "Gareth," she said, her voice filled with emotion, it's magnificent." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. She saw the vulnerability in his gaze, the hope that she would understand the meaning behind his gift. "I made it for you," he mumbled, his cheeks flushed. "As a thank you. For everything." Elara understood. She knew that the iron rose was more than just a thank you gift. It was a symbol of his growing affection, a testament to the bond they had formed. It was a piece of his heart, forged in fire and shaped by kindness. She took the rose from him, holding it close to her chest. "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received," she said softly. "Thank you, Gareth." In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them, a promise of something more to come. The iron rose sat on her windowsill, a constant reminder of Gareth's kindness and her own growing affection for the lonely blacksmith. The sight of Elara leaving Gareth's forge, clutching the iron rose to her chest, didn't go unnoticed. Martha, the baker, saw it from her shop window. Thomas, the tailor, spotted it while delivering a suit to the mayor. Soon, whispers began to circulate throughout the town. "Did you see Elara and Gareth? They seem awfully close these days. Do you think?" The townsfolk had always considered Gareth a lost cause, a grumpy recluse who would never find love. And Elara, still mourning her late husband, seemed content in her quiet widowhood. The idea of them together was surprising, even a little scandalous. Some were skeptical. "It won't last," old Mrs. Higgins declared, adjusting her spectacles. "He's too rough for someone like Elara." Others were more hopeful. "Maybe it's just what they both need," Thomas, the tailor, said with a smile. "A little bit of love and companionship." Children, too, noticed the change. They no longer ran away from Gareth's forge. Instead, they would peek inside, hoping to catch a glimpse of Elara. They saw her helping Gareth with his work, bringing him water, and laughing at his jokes. The forge, once a place of shadows and silence, now seemed filled with light and laughter. The townsfolk watched with bated breath, wondering if Elara and Gareth's friendship would blossom into something more. They knew that love could be found in the most unexpected places, and perhaps, just perhaps, the kind widow and the lonely blacksmith were meant to find it with each other. The iron rose on Elara's windowsill became a symbol of hope for the entire town. One blustery autumn evening, a terrible storm raged through the town. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, tearing roofs from houses and uprooting trees. Rain lashed down in sheets, flooding the streets and turning the river into a raging torrent. The next morning, the town was a scene of devastation. Homes were damaged, fences were broken, and the bridge leading to the neighboring village had collapsed. The townsfolk were disheartened, unsure how to begin repairing the damage. The mayor, a portly man with a worried expression, addressed the town square. "We need to rebuild," he announced, his voice strained. "But we don't have the tools or the resources." That's when everyone turned to Gareth. His blacksmithing skills were essential for repairing the damage. He could forge new tools, mend broken fences, and even help rebuild the bridge. But Gareth hesitated. He had always been a solitary worker, preferring to keep to himself. He wasn't sure he could handle the pressure of helping the entire town. The weight of responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders. He looked at Elara, who stood beside him, her eyes filled with encouragement. He saw the hope in her gaze, the belief that he could make a difference. But deep down, Gareth doubted himself. Could he really be the hero the town needed? Could he overcome his self-doubt and use his skills to help others? The storm had created more than just physical damage, it had created a challenge that Gareth had to face. Elara took Gareth's hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "Gareth," she said, her voice soft but firm, "you are the strongest and most skilled blacksmith I know. You can do this." She reminded him of all the times he had helped her, mending her garden tools, fixing her gate. She reminded him of the joy he found in his work, the satisfaction of creating something useful and beautiful. The town needs you, Gareth, she continued. They need your strength and your skill. Don't let your self-doubt hold you back. You are capable of so much more than you think. She also reminded him that he wasn't alone. She would be there to support him, to help him in any way she could. The townsfolk, too, were ready to lend a hand. They would gather materials, provide food, and offer encouragement. Gareth looked around at the faces of the townsfolk, their eyes filled with hope and expectation. He saw the children, their homes damaged, their lives disrupted. He realized that he couldn't let them down. Taking a deep breath, he straightened his shoulders and nodded. "All right," he said, his voice stronger now. "I'll do it. I'll help rebuild the town." Elara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. She knew that Gareth had made the right decision. He was no longer just the lonely blacksmith, he was a hero in the making. Together, they would face the challenge and help the town recover from the storm. The iron rose in her cottage seemed to gleam a little brighter, a symbol of their shared strength and hope. Gareth worked tirelessly, his forge burning day and night. He hammered and shaped metal, creating tools, mending fences, and reinforcing damaged structures. Elara was always by his side, helping him in any way she could. She brought him food and water, cleaned his tools, and offered words of encouragement when he grew weary. The townsfolk rallied around him, providing materials and labor. Children collected scrap metal, and the women sewed new blankets for those whose homes had been damaged. Even old Mrs. Higgins helped, knitting warm scarves for the workers. Slowly but surely, the town began to recover. Homes were repaired, fences were rebuilt, and the bridge, thanks to Gareth's skill, was stronger than ever before. The townsfolk cheered as the first wagon crossed the newly rebuilt bridge, connecting them once again to the outside world. Gareth, once the lonely blacksmith, was now a hero. People praised his skill, his strength, and his dedication. He was no longer just Gareth, he was Gareth the hero, the man who had saved the town. But Gareth knew that he couldn't have done it without Elara. Her support had given him the strength to overcome his self-doubt and use his skills to help others. He looked at her, his heart filled with gratitude and affection. He knew that his feelings for her had deepened, growing stronger with each passing day. The iron rose, a symbol of his gratitude, now seemed to represent something more, something deeper. It represented love. Elara, too, had realized her feelings for Gareth had grown beyond friendship. She admired his strength, his skill, and his newfound confidence. But most of all, she loved his kind heart, the heart she had helped to unlock. She knew that she had fallen in love with the lonely blacksmith who was now a hero to the town. One evening, after all the repairs were completed, Gareth and Elara sat by the fire in his forge. The air was filled with a comfortable silence, a silence that spoke volumes about their shared connection. Gareth looked at Elara, his eyes filled with love and gratitude. He reached out and took her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "Elara," he said, his voice soft, I don't know what I would have done without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You showed me that I was capable of more than I ever thought possible." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I also realized that he hesitated, searching for the right words. "I love you, Elara. More than I ever thought possible." Elara's eyes filled with tears. She had been waiting to hear those words, hoping that Gareth felt the same way she did. She squeezed his hand, her heart overflowing with love. "Oh, Gareth," she said, her voice trembling, "I love you too. More than words can say." In that moment, the fire in the forge seemed to burn a little brighter, reflecting the love that filled the room. The iron rose on Elara's windowsill seemed to bloom, a symbol of their blossoming romance. They knew that they had found something special, something precious, something that would last a lifetime. Gareth's confession was a testament to his newfound courage. He had spent so long guarding his heart, afraid of being hurt again. But Alara's kindness had shown him that love was worth the risk. He had rehearsed the words in his head 100 times, but when the moment came, they still felt clumsy and inadequate. He stumbled over them, his cheeks flushed, his heart pounding in his chest. "It's just. You've changed everything," he continued, his voice gaining confidence. "Before you came along, my life was just the forge, the hammer, the metal. It was lonely and dark. But you brought light and warmth into my world. You made me believe in myself again." He looked at Alara, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I know I'm not the easiest person to love," he said, "but I promise to always cherish you, to always be there for you, to always protect you. I will always try to be worthy of your love." His confession was simple, heartfelt, and true. It was a testament to the power of love and kindness, the power to heal old wounds and open hearts to new possibilities. It was a moment of vulnerability, a moment of truth, a moment that would change their lives forever. He had faced his fear, taken the risk, and bared his soul to the woman he loved. And now, he waited, his heart filled with hope and trepidation, for her response. The iron rose seemed to pulse with a faint, warm glow, as if sharing in their emotional moment. Alara's heart fluttered at Gareth's words. Tears welled up in her eyes, tears of joy and relief. She reached up and gently cupped his face in her hands, her touch tender and loving. "Oh, Gareth," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "you silly man. Didn't you know? I've been in love with you for weeks." She confessed her own feelings, how she had admired his strength and skill, but most of all, his kind heart. She told him how he had helped her heal from her grief, how he had brought laughter and joy back into her life. "You're not hard to love, Gareth," she said, smiling through her tears. "You're the most wonderful man I know." She leaned in and kissed him, a soft, tender kiss that sealed their love. It was a kiss that spoke volumes about their shared history, their growing affection, and their hopes for the future. Gareth kissed her back, his heart overflowing with happiness. He had never felt so loved, so cherished, so complete. He knew that he had found his soulmate, the woman who would stand by his side, through thick and thin, for the rest of their lives. As they embraced, the fire in the forge crackled merrily, casting warm shadows on the walls. The iron rose on Alara's windowsill seemed to shimmer with a golden light, a symbol of their love that would endure forever. In the quiet stillness of the forge, their hearts beat as one, their love story just beginning. They were ready to face the future, together. The town would rejoice. The town rejoiced at the news of Alara and Gareth's love. They celebrated with a town-wide feast, filled with music, laughter, and dancing. Even old Mrs. Higgins cracked a smile, admitting that she had been wrong about Gareth all along. From that day forward, Alara and Gareth were inseparable. They worked together in the blacksmith shop, their love making their creations even more beautiful and enduring. Alara helped Gareth with the designs, adding her artistic touch to his strong and sturdy pieces. Gareth, in turn, created beautiful iron gates for Alara's garden, filling it with roses and other climbing flowers. The blacksmith shop became a place of warmth and happiness, a gathering place for the community. Children would stop by to watch Gareth work, and Alara would tell them stories of brave knights and magical creatures. The forge, once a symbol of Gareth's loneliness, now symbolized love, community, and hope. The iron rose always sat on Alara's windowsill, a constant reminder of their love story. It was a symbol of their journey, from loneliness and heartbreak to love and happiness. It was a reminder that even the grumpiest of hearts can be melted by kindness and that love can blossom in the most unexpected places. And so, Alara and Gareth lived happily ever after, their love bringing warmth and happiness to the town, their story a testament to the power of kindness, forgiveness, and love. The end.